Ciao, buonasera. Hai vinto 40 Masters 1000 e 24 Slam. Secondo te, not too bad. Secondo te qual è la cosa più difficile oggi che i Masters 1000 tra l'altro durano 2 settimane spesso e quindi Sinner è il più vicino a fare tutti i Masters 1000 che gli manca solo Roma. Secondo te ce la farà e quanto è difficile?
Ce la farà sicuro, probabilmente anche quest'anno, perché è fortissimo come gioca, è veramente impressionante. Poi è difficile, ovviamente che è difficile, sì, è cambiato il formato, adesso abbiamo quasi 2 settimane come hai detto prima. Io non mi piace questo, a me personalmente, a me mi piace più di vecchio formato di avere 1 settimana per torneo di Master e tutti gli altri solo Grand Slam 2 settimane. Però è così e basta, si deve adattare, accettare. Ci sono alcuni vantaggi, diciamo, di avere un giorno in mezzo di ogni partita che ti puoi recuperare meglio e credo che questo aiuta sicuramente alcuni giocatori. Però ovviamente che è difficile perché hai diverse superfici, condizioni indoor, outdoor. Però Jannik è un giocatore molto completo che ovviamente è dimostrato questo negli ultimi 2 anni e è numero 1 al mondo con ragione. Grazie. Hello everyone. Buongiorno.
Novak, welcome back to the ATP Tour. We haven't seen you since Indian Wells. How are you holding up and how do you look forward to the match tomorrow against Prismic?
That's funny. Welcome back to ATP Tour. It's true, but it's just funny. I didn't hear it from you for a long time. Playing 2 tournaments this year obviously makes sense how you phrase the question. It feels great to be back. You know, I was looking forward to compete, to go back to playing terms. I wanted to be back on the tour earlier, but fortunately the injury prevented me to do that, so I had to wait a bit more and progressively improve the state of the body and obviously get ready for Roma, the city and the tournament that I truly love and I had a great success in for many years. The ultimate goal on this surface is Roland Garros and trying to get ready to play my best tennis there, but nevertheless, I do want to do well here. So, but I do have a lower expectations.
Hello, Novak. Could I ask you about Aryna Sabalenka's comment suggesting that players could at some point boycott a Grand Slam over this prize money dispute? Do you think this is a cause that potentially merits strike action? And could you personally ever see yourself boycotting one of the slams?
I think you've been around the tour long enough to I think remember the times when I was a president of the council and when I was also forming a PTPA, which was now 6 years ago. So you guys know my position on that. I've said it many times. I don't need to talk about that, too long. Players know that they'll always have my support, and that's all. You know, the new generations are coming up, and I'm glad that there's willingness to, from the leaders of our sport, like Sabalenka, to really step up and really understand the dynamics of how the tennis politics works and understand the nuances and really what needs to be done, not only for her benefit and well-being, but for everyone. So, and that's a true leadership for me. I think that she needs to maintain that, and I salute that. So that's all I have to say about that. And, you know, we're all part of the same sport. We all try to elevate the game, whether it's players, tournaments, governing bodies. Unfortunately, oftentimes there's a conflict of interest that some people don't want to address, and I think that's where the players really have the power. And I'm always supportive of the stronger player position in the ecosystem.
Hey Novak, then given as you said, kind of what you've done in terms of tennis politics in the past, do you feel part of this movement, or do you watch on the new generation, kind of encouraging them from the side?
I am watching more from the side, to be honest. I haven't been part of those meetings and conversations. But my position is very clear. I support the players and always will support stronger player position in the ecosystem, as I said.
Novak. Hi, sorry, another one on this topic. Jannik was talking about how he felt in other sports, if the top players spoke out on these topics, they'd be listened to much more quickly. In your experience, how difficult is it in tennis, the fact that with the Grand Slam, say, there are 4 different entities that you've got to deal with, 7 governing bodies? How much more challenging does that make it?
As I said, this is not the first time I'm getting these questions. I know this is a hot topic now. You guys want to talk about it, but if you go back to many of my conferences, you'll see how I went into detail and depth on this. This is not new subject nor new topic. It's been ongoing for many, many years. Well, as long as I'm playing, I know that this has been topic. Sometimes it kind of becomes more interesting in public, or you guys ask us questions on that, sometimes not. So it just really varies, and now is the time to talk about it. And I do like the fact that there is more conversations happening on this, and it needs to be, because player's position is not where it needs to be with with slams, with tours, just overall it's not there. Hence why the reason why I co-founded the Players Association, PTPA, and that was my kind of search for more profound, meaningful solution, a little bit of outside of a system, because the system is set up in such a way that it just doesn't benefit players across all fields. And I'm not, also in the past what I noticed is many times people would twist particularly my words and say that I'm asking myself for more money even when I was winning slams, and you guys like to put headlines of the Grand Slam winner gets so and so, never more in history, but we're not talking about the lower ranked players, the tier 1, the ground base level of the tennis players that are struggling. They're leaving tennis because of no funding, and we are, I think, the only global sport. If you see all the global sports, I think we're the only ones that are in this particular situation. Where we don't have a certain financial say gains or guarantees for the lower ranked players, and If you count, I don't know if it changed since a few years, but we were within the PTPA back in the days counting and doing, studies and investigating on how many players across men's and women's singles, doubles live out of this sport, and it's very, 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 very small number. So, and when we talk about living out of the sport, is when you do your P&L in the end of the day, and then you have all the costs that you have to cover traveling, and your team, that you actually have some savings to be able to invest in something else. So it's a very, very little number. So at the end of the day, this is always an open discussion, and tennis, as any big global sport, is a big business. It's not that simple. Of course, it needs to be approached from all sides with willingness to work together and figure out what the formula is. But, also something that needs to be said is that the monopoly of our sport is very strong. I mean, if you go back to when the ATP, for example, was founded, back in, was it beginning of 90s or end of 80s? I mean, it's, it has the tennis has changed a lot, but there are certain things within the structure that hasn't changed, and the players within the player council have really absolutely no power. So it's just, you know, I've been there. I was president of the council. I've been there for many years. It's just, you know, in public you may think that there is some, you know, power by electing the representative of the players, and then there's a board, and then the whole structure is just conceptualized in a certain way where players are just not able to get what they want. So that's hence why the top players come together and try to negotiate directly with slams, which I think is the right way. I mean, you have to try to figure out ways to benefit.
Carlos Alcaraz receives a warning after his injury. The best thing is to take his time. Ivan Lubicic, former coach of Roger Federer, advises the Mercian not to force his return despite potentially missing up to 2 Grand Slams. Carlos Alcaraz's injury is one of the hottest topics in the tennis world right now. His wrist problems, which began in Barcelona without seeming too serious, have ended up being more severe than expected, and the Spaniard has been forced to say goodbye to the rest of the clay court season. With no scheduled return date on the horizon, Carlos Alcaraz does know that, at the very least, he will miss the Rome Masters 1000 and Roland Garros. He is defending titles at both tournaments, and his absence will undoubtedly be a major blow in his battle for the world #1 ranking, an honor that Jannik Sinner is currently enjoying with barely any competition. Although missing tournaments of this caliber at this stage may seem catastrophic, coming back too early could be even worse. That is what Ivan Lubicic, Roger Federer's former coach, has reminded everyone of in an extensive interview with the Italian newspaper Corriere dello Sport, where he discussed the current situation of the Mercian player. Carlos has pain in his wrist, so he has time and the opportunity to work on other things with his team, the coach said regarding the world #2's physical condition. I hope he can take all the time he needs without forcing his comeback, he admitted. And for the coach, rushing back despite the urgency of defending ranking points could be an even bigger mistake. I understand that missing 1 or even 2 Grand Slams may seem drastic nowadays, but taking a longer break rather than rushing things would be far less serious, he explained. Once you're struggling, the best thing is to take your time and come back when you're ready. Despite his physical problems, Ivan Lubicic does not foresee changes in Alcaraz's coaching team. I don't know, the injury is definitely not related to the team. And he won the Australian Open earlier this year. So I couldn't say, he admitted. An unexpected injury that has put Carlos Alcaraz's season in jeopardy at the most important moment. Jannik Sinner under the spotlight. A debate has emerged around the Italian tennis player following his comfortable victory in Madrid and Carlos Alcaraz's absence from Rome and Roland Garros. Although the debate was already ongoing, the dominance shown by Jannik Sinner at the Mutua Madrid Open, where he crushed Alexander Zverev, has reignited it. Is there anyone capable of beating Sinner right now? The debate was sparked by British tennis player Greg Rusedski just before the Madrid tournament began and when Carlos Alcaraz announced that he would not play in either Madrid or Rome and would not return before Roland Garros. There's much more pressure and expectation because I'm saying he's going to win Roland Garros, he's going to win Madrid, he's going to win Rome, and he should win everything he plays from now on. Imagine if Alcaraz doesn't show up at Wimbledon. Again, the pressure will be enormous. You should win everything, said the former British player of Canadian origin. For Rusedski, Sinner is ready to handle that extreme pressure, and his improvement on clay was demonstrated with his victory over Alcaraz in Monte Carlo. Until then, he had never won a clay court tournament, but after triumphing there, he repeated the feat in Madrid. It's not easy to deal with that expectation and pressure. Yes, he is mentally strong, but suddenly you take away his biggest rival and everyone says you should win. The other players also seem to be starting to step up, he added. So far, Jannik has been incredible. I've been watching him. And he simply always plays the right shot. Even if he doesn't always execute it perfectly, the former player admitted. Sinner can handle the pressure and is far above everyone else. In Madrid, he only really suffered in the first set against Bonzi, when he arrived lacking rhythm and faced an opponent who had already played on the Caja Mágica courts. From that point on, he did not lose a single set, and in the semifinals and final, he steamrolled 2 of the most informed players at the moment, Arthur Fils and Alex Zverev. In Rome, despite not having rested, the same question remains, will anyone be capable of challenging him? Based on the rankings, his biggest rival would be Zverev, but the German already seems defeated before the tournament even begins. He openly admits that there is currently a huge gap between himself and Sinner after losing their last 9 meetings. In fact, the German says that the world #1 is currently above everyone else, including Carlos Alcaraz. I think there's a big difference between Sinner and everyone else right now. It's quite simple, And I think there's also a big difference between Alcaraz, myself, maybe Novak, and the rest. I think there are two different levels right now. It's hard to say there isn't a gap between Sinner and everyone else if he hasn't lost a Masters 1000 match since Shanghai. He hasn't lost a match in almost 9 months. I think you have to admit there's a difference between him and everyone else, the German warned.